and shorter. All right, nerds. I have Blair Walsingham, who is a repeat guest in the Nerd Zone. Hello, nerds, Blair.
Hello, nerds. Glad to be back.
Well, it's so fun to talk with you, and I'm so glad that you have a great internet connection
Yeah, it's been
for
a
this
been an
interview.
upgrade.
Yeah. Did you move or did the service provider just up their game?
It is not the service provider. It's a new service provider. I am in a different location. So,
Okay. Are you still
yeah.
in Tennessee or are you in a different
I
state
am
now or?
actually not in Tennessee right now. I'm actually currently in upstate New York.
Oh, very nice. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Cool.
It's not that different where I'm at actually. I am still in a mountainside. I'm still in a red district. I've got about a foot of snow outside though. That's a little different.
Oh yeah. And are you going to be there for a while? You're not visiting upstate New York. That's your
It's
new
definitely a home
circle.
for now. We did
Nice.
buy a house up here and move the kids up here and everything. But Tennessee is definitely still home, and my family's still there. All of our farm is still there and everything. And I do hope to go back one day.
Right on, right on. Well, last time we talked, I think it was around the time of your campaign for Congress or maybe right after, but a lot has transpired since then, and now you're deputy director at the Forward Party. So congrats on the gig and the new
Yeah,
role.
thanks.
How did you go from there to here?
It was really interesting. Tom, you heard a lot about my campaign, and it was really tough running as a Democrat in a super, super
Yeah,
conservative 140 years, district.
yeah.
And it was really amazing, but it was really difficult. And at the end of my campaign, it was tough. I was like, do I really fit in with the Democratic Party? Do
Mm,
I fit in with the Republican Party? And that was a no. Um, and just being a congressional nominee and going through the steps and seeing a lot of the behind the scenes, it did really kind of change my mindset and see how broken so much of our system was. So Andrew gave me a call and was like, "Hey, I have this crazy idea that we can maybe fix this broken, crazy system. What do you think?" And we had some hard conversations, and me, him, and Matt born Ford Party, and then skip a year ahead. We've now had this major merger with the Sam and Ram team, and have this
mm-hmm.
massive board and so many great people on board. So I'm the deputy director of campaigns and candidates, and through my campaign, I became really passionate about helping other candidates. Being a first time candidate is so seriously difficult. If you don't have a team or name recognition, there's so many resources, and that's a big focus of Forward Party is coming up with that hard and soft infrastructure to actually support candidates.
Yeah, it's great that you're in that role since you were on the other side of the table, as a candidate, and now you're in the position to help them. I was actually interviewing January Walker, who was
Yeah,
on the show a
January.
few weeks ago. Yeah, and she's awesome. She has so much energy and passion, and
Yeah.
really kind of ready to challenge the status quo. And I asked her, I said, hey, I noticed you got endorsed by the Forward Party.
Mhm.
What, did you notice a surge in volunteers or donations or resources? And I think she said, it was helpful, but it wasn't like a
Mhm.
game changer. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, and in terms of going forward, most importantly, when someone is a Forward Party candidate or gets that endorsement, what do you all want to see happen after that?
Yeah, it's tough because we're such a new organization. We like to say we're kind
Mm-hmm.
of like in our infant stages. So you have a lot of the early adopters or people from the previous movements who are a part. And it's such a, kind of abstract concept, what we're doing, that it takes a while to try to tell people, like, hey, this is how it works. This is why we're doing what we're doing. And getting that grassroots movement kind of up and engaged. And I think
Mm-hmm.
politics just has a way of burning people out. You have so many dedicated activists, door knockers,
Yeah.
phone bankers who've been doing it for so long. Sometimes people need breaks from it. So I know they'll come back when they're well rested, but it's really important. That's why I try to tell people all the time. One, I tell you local elections. please, please, please get involved in your local elections. Those people need you. There's somebody like running for city council right now who has like no team and needs help.
Mm-hmm.
But people tend to want to get more involved in the larger races. So it's definitely something on my mind, is building up that network and making sure people understand. But Forward Party is really focused on, achieving not just party recognition, but becoming a viable, sustainable party. And to be
Yeah.
sustainable, you have to have that people power. Without that, nothing happens. So.
And what are your thoughts on local candidates versus, kind of national campaigns or statewide campaigns? Do you see the Forward Party putting more of its resources behind city council, mayoral, those types of races, or do you see yourselves focusing on, kind of the more headline, races, for big congressional districts and things?
Well, Tom, everybody immediately is like 2024 presidential, who's with Forward Party. And we are constantly
Mm-hmm.
saying, look, we're really focused on the down ballot races. That's actually the core of what we're looking for. So 70 some percent of down ballot races go completely unchallenged. Some people don't even run for a position at all. It's just empty, vacant.
Mm.
Nobody wants to run for it. So it's definitely a core idea to really support these down ballot local races. When you're your local city council team, your school board, that's when you get that true engagement in your community. And most of the issues that people feel really passionate about, it's something like there's potholes on the main road and we keep getting flat tires, or we need more funding for the laptops in school and things like that, where you can make a really big difference in your local community. So I would love to see us really support a plethora of down ballot races as a key focus. And some of those races, it could be a really small difference. You could get out the vote for like 200 people and win a race. So I just think those are really good starting places, especially for new first time candidates.
Yeah, I mean, those types of races, having one volunteer even spend 10 hours a week
Yeah.
could be the difference, right? Whereas,
Oh,
like, if it's like a giant
absolutely.
congressional race with some huge incumbent, like that one volunteer for 10 hours may not, make as much of a difference.
Yeah, and if you look at the monetary aspects, so you're talking a
Mm-hmm.
minimum $1 million to be a viable federal candidate. And some
Mm-hmm.
of these races, we saw like $40 million go into a single race. It's just, insanity, and it's a massive amount of financial resources needed versus your city council person. $500 could make a really big difference for them to
Yeah.
reach people. So it's just a more viable path, and I think it's a more I don't want to say more important, but I think it's more important that people get involved in their local politics.
Yeah. So, how are you all thinking about determining what local candidates the Forward Party wants to get behind and support, given that they may not be focused on the same kind of federal issues. They truly will be more local topics.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think about candidate selection and candidate quality and stuff like that?
There's two things that come to mind here. Is one, the way we're building the Forward Party is very different. And we talk about this all the time about it being from the grassroots up. And this is where it happens with candidates as well. And we did this last cycle, but it was such a whirlwind. But our states, our volunteers are the ones who get to say, hey, we have Bob over here running for city council. We think he's amazing. Here's what Bob cares about, what he wants to do. And they are the ones who tell us who they want to support. So it's really about us empowering them to be able to make those decisions and support their own people, to get them elected, instead of us saying, hey, this is your candidate and you're going to
Mm-hmm.
go call bank for him or whatever it is. So it's really from a grassroots up kind of perspective. And that's also the beauty of the laser focused on the democracy reforms at Forward Party. Hey, where's your big giant policy page? I love the big giant policy page. Don't get me wrong. There's a million policies I would love to see. But until we correct that, our electoral system, it doesn't really matter. We can love something all day. The bill doesn't go to the floor. 80% of Americans be like, yes, we want this. And they're like, no, we're not going to bring the bill to the floor. So having this kind of shared reality of these are the core issues that we need to change the system with still allows a lot of flexibility and freedom for our mayor of Atlanta versus a mayor of Edson, Tennessee is going to need really different things. Whatever
Mm-hmm.
those key issues are largely going to be very different. So instead of mandating this massive policy list and saying you have to have A through Z, we're saying you support free people, thriving democracies, healthy communities. What policies do you have that fit in those? So it's kind of customizable to each area.
And if people are really passionate about starting with democracy reform,
Mm-hmm.
is the best way to influence that the state legislature, or what's the path to have the most impact around that?
Well, it's tricky. So some states don't allow ballot measures. Tennessee's one. We can't say, hey, let's vote on. Let the people vote and say, do we want to vote on this? It doesn't happen,
Oh.
right? But Nevada, they had to do a constitutional amendment. So their ballot measure is actually a constitutional amendment, which requires you to heavily engage in the community. And they did show up and say, yes, we want this. And then it has to go the same process basically again in 2024, so people can vote again and say, yes, we really want this. And then it gets implemented in 2026. So it's actually kind of crazy, and the
Wow.
process varies state to state and how it can work. So there are state legislators putting forth ranked choice voting bills at the state level, approval voting bills at the state level, nonpartisan primaries, and things like that. But there's a lot of competition that way. And I mean, I obviously would love to see it happen at a federal level just because I think that would be such a massive game changer. But
Mm-hmm.
it really just depends on how your state functions. And either way, you need to be talking to your legislators about it. So call them, harass them politely. I say via email and letters and very nice phone calls, and let them know. Otherwise, they don't know. If you aren't expressing that you really want a policy, they don't really know. And there's so many bills and
Mm-hmm.
questions nonstop. And I feel like most of the time, the phone calls or letters they get are angry people.
Yeah.
Um, so sending something that's nice and expressive and supportive can be really helpful.
Well, yeah. If the Forward Party identifies any state representatives that they think are pro democracy reform in California, as an example, how would I even find out so that I could a like get them on the show, but also b like maybe volunteer a little bit and try and spread the word about what they're doing? Is there a easy way for me to do that now, or?
Um, you mean just for like Forward Party candidates or candidates in
Yeah, like
general?
so, just Forward Party candidates. Like I live in California. I'm pro democracy reform.
Hmm.
I don't know who is has been identified by the Forward Party as someone that you all think is a good candidate that I should try and lend my support to.
Yeah, so I would say for you, Tom, and for anybody anywhere else,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just a matter of like going to a meeting and talking to the grassroots people and like, hey, who are you guys looking at? Who are you supporting?
Mm-hmm.
Who are you working with? Because until we get closer to election season and start to do formal endorsements, um, we're not going to have like a public database because we don't even know. We're not sure who's running where. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people don't file until so much closer to election season. But I think this is a really good way to start is asking people to kind of do the legwork. Like call your city council person and ask them like, hey man, have you heard of ranked choice voting and do you
Mm-hmm.
support it? And would you be willing to upgrade our city council to these kind of reforms? And honestly, those are much easier to instill. Is getting
Yeah.
your school board to start using it or your local assembly is a much easier ask and much more passable. So starting there is a good way to go, and it also kind of pushes them into realizing that this is actually an issue people are going to vote on. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see this be a deal breaker. Oh, you don't support electoral reforms? Well, like you can't earn my vote then.
Mm-hmm.
That would be ideal. I would love to see that.
Yeah, and does the Forward Party have any like templates or talking points or ways to make it easier for individuals to reach out to their local representatives to make that case, or
Yeah.
just anything to kind of remove friction is always a good thing.
Yeah, no, you're on your own. No, I'm just kidding. We try to provide as many tools as possible. And if we realize we don't have something, we definitely try to make it anytime somebody asks. So we have like PDFs and one pagers and talking
Hmm.
points, data that you can send over. We even have some templates. You know, if you're nervous, you're like me and you don't like cold calling somebody and you're like, hey, what do I say? We give you, you know, some templates to work from to make you more comfortable in doing that work. So there's definitely a lot of resources. If you're a signed up volunteer, there's a handbook in the website and it takes you to a lot of these different resources. We're also working out, rolling out basically like an education library that's digital, that can tell you like what kind of questions should you ask a candidate, right?
Hmm.
How do you know if a candidate's viable or not? Um, you know, how do you know your district rating? And this is so funny to me is I've talked to some even elected officials and they're like, I don't know what a district rating is. They don't even know. Some people don't
Mm,
even know. So I think there's a big learning curve, for people, especially of this movement, who maybe were disengaged from politics,
right.
you know, didn't maybe don't have like a political science degree, and they're kind of in the earlier phases of figuring out how this works. So we're working on having those like basic educational tools as well.
You mentioned the big merger with Sam and Ram, and I'm curious from and you were also part of the forward effort from the very earliest days. How
Yeah.
has the organization and priorities changed as a result of the merger, and
Mm.
what kind of emphasis has changed after you all came together?
Yeah. Yeah, that was really interesting. It's unusual for two companies to merge, let alone three.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're talking politics, right, so much ideology or thoughts or
Yeah.
passion, it's tricky. So it's actually been really beautiful to see so many different perspectives and groups come together and make this a cohesive unit. There wasn't actually too much difference. There's actually a ton of organizations out there who are focused on these things. So you think Represent Us, Fair Vote, you know, Veterans for Political Innovation, Independent Voters. There's
Mm-hmm.
countless organizations who are out here doing the work. And it's just basically bringing everybody together. We agree. Most of the country agrees, like, hey, we need these reforms. So it's just a matter of working together and putting any ideological differences to the side. But to be completely, you know, candid, Tom, because you know that's how I am. We dropped a lot of policies, right? We had several
Mm-hmm.
other policies and we did drop them. And the most notable one would be universal basic income. And even for me initially, I was like feeling a little bit of a struggle with that because that's a passionate, area of mine personally. But what I've really come to understand and see and experience is we can, again, say we all want this and those bills are not going to the floor. Do you know how many candidates were elected campaigning on universal basic income? Not many,
Not a whole
right?
lot.
Not a
Yeah.
whole lot. You can look at mayors for guaranteed income. They had some successful. Mayor Tubbs was really amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but even a few people who got elected weren't even able, they didn't have the leverage to implement it in some
Yeah.
cases. So we still have this really big shift. And, you know, for me, getting the system fixed so that we can push forward on those other different policies is really where it comes to for me. I want to be successful in what we do,
Mm-hmm.
and this is like the stepping stones to that success, is implementing these first. So that was probably the biggest and most difficult change I saw.
I know you had to drop that. I'm wondering, personal topic that I've been kind of thinking about a lot lately is the absence of any meaningful discussion by the two sort of traditional parties around
Mm,
comprehensive immigration reform. And I feel like, wow, this is like on the left, nobody wants to talk about the logistical, economic kind of issues around like we cannot have unlimited, asylum seekers like as much as we might want to.
mm-hmm.
There's just a physical and financial cost to that. Even if you believe and are pro immigration and diversity, there's got to be some structure and organization. And then if you look at the right, it's just sort of like a red meat issue where they will yell about it, but there aren't any solutions being proposed other than, build the wall, which is maybe part, border security is certainly part of it, but it's not the full story.
Hmm.
I don't see anyone out there talking about this really hard problem that will only get worse, in my opinion, as climate and economic uncertainty and political uncertainty all across, the world,
Hmm.
especially, south of us, gets worse. I don't blame any of the people that are trying to come into the country, but I also feel like, well, we on the other side of the border need to figure out, like, how do we want to manage this? Is that something that the Forward Party would ever wade into? It's a bit of a third rail. Nobody wants to talk about it, but I figured, well, if there's any party that might be willing to tackle tough things with common sense ideas, it might be the Forward Party.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, there's so many issues that a lot of us are really passionate about, and we want to see progress. But it basically comes down to the same point for any of them. It could be healthcare, it can be immigration, it
Mm-hmm.
can be whatever. Is that we haven't made progress, right? And the two major parties tend to do like this ping pong back
Mm-hmm.
and forth where we don't see real progress, real change, or like you're saying, real solutions. Until we can get past that, I don't see it happening for anybody. So we're also going to have a convention, and we do want to have one, our supporters speak up and say what are they most passionate about, and two, bring experts in to talk about the different policy plans that are out there for various issues such as this. Because a lot of people, like I said, don't have political science degrees, right? This is for the everyday average person who wants to be involved and make a difference. So we want to provide that kind of educational aspect of policies too. Because you're right, right? If you hear on the news, you hear this one side and you hear this other
Mm-hmm.
side, and neither of them are really viable actual solutions. And it's really easy for people to say, we don't have the resources, or the other side, we're just overly generous. We have to come up with something that is sustainable, and also humanitarian, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are people, and a lot of them, their lives are at risk. They're coming from very desperate situations. People don't cross oceans on a float, or go through the
Mm-hmm.
jungle or any of these things because it's fun. It's because out of desperation. So that's a really, really tough problem, to solve. And I think we need to get to a point where our leaders are willing to have a actual conversation about it realistically, and that's ultimately where Forward Party is trying to get us.
You mentioned the convention. Tell me a little bit more. It doesn't sound like a traditional modern party convention where it's all sort of scripted and everything's already decided. It sounds like kind of the conventions I used to read about in history class, like earlier in our country's history, where there were discussions and stuff was decided. Is that? Tell me, what are you thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly how it should be. We want to bring more people into the fold, open it up, have respectful, debates and deep conversations about this, and have them weigh in and vote and actually have a say in what our platform, ultimately expands to. And then bringing in the people to give different perspectives to just kind of help provide that various insight from different sides. If you only watch one news channel, right, you've probably never heard some of these other talking points or data
Mm-hmm.
points. That's ultimately that bridge we're trying to cover. So I think it'll be a lot of fun too. We want people to have fun. Politics is so like boring, ugly, mudslinging so much of the time. We want the convention to be somewhere that's providing hope, and that you meet lifelong friends and learn about these amazing policies. So I have high hopes for it.
Now, normally the conventions are, after they've picked their presidential candidate and it's kind of like a kickoff to the official presidential campaign. I could see the Forward Party choosing to do a convention earlier in the cycle, since you're still in the formative stage, and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't sound like you're going to emphasize the presidential campaign. Any thoughts on like timing and or location, or like when can people start to learn more?
Yeah, I think there's a heavy ask for it to be in Las Vegas. in Nevada, which would be great. Nevada did actually file for party recognition just a few days ago on the 12th. So shout out to Caesar and the Nevada team. So they're actively registering people for Forward Party in that state right now. And I think Las Vegas just has so much opportunity, and it's kind of somewhere different in the middle of the country. Kind of in the middle, a little bit west of the middle. It's pretty far west, actually. But I think it'd be a lot of fun, and there's a lot of people really asking for Las Vegas. So we'll see. We'll see if that ends up being it or not. But I don't have a deeper inside scoop for you on that.
Yeah, and in terms of timing, you think it'll be like early next year, middle of next year, late next year?
I'm unsure. I would assume we'd want to have it sooner than later.
Yeah.
And I think the closer we get to the presidential, the worse it's actually going to be.
Mm,
Um, I think a lot of us are not looking forward to a rematch of the last cycle, and
mm-hmm.
there's a lot of uncertainty on what it's going to look like come 2024 and who's going to be up on those stages. So I mean, we're as anxious as everybody else to see how that unfolds. So I'd love to see it sooner than that. That way we can really focus on the movement and what we're doing and our people instead of everybody being really worried about the upcoming election.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine once we get past the spring of next year, there's going to be a lot of oxygen sucked out of the room by the Republican primaries and their nominee. That's just going to be a bit of a reality show probably. And yeah, so I hope. Yeah, it sounds exciting. I look forward to learning more and seeing what's on the horizon with the conventions. What are you most excited about in terms of what you think the Forward Party can accomplish next year?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I feel like this is too obvious, but the candidates. I want to see so many new people get into office. I want to be able to help them assemble their teams and just be really productive and make those changes in their local communities. There's over 700 applications in the Forward Party database of people who want to run for office. So it's not that there is a lack of people who wanting to run. It's really a lack of resources, right? They all need
Mm-hmm.
funding. They all need volunteers. A lot of them don't have the knowledge they need necessarily to do like FEC filing compliance. Hey, I'm struggling myself. I had an FEC person ran for office. I owe over $5,000 to the FEC now for a fine for not filing a second filing to say my campaign is over. I have no money. We're not doing anything. We turned that in, and apparently we
Mm,
needed to turn a second one in. Right. So these are barriers candidates face, and we kind of have this pay to play system, right? So in some cases, you have to pay several thousands of dollars to get on the ballot. You need, as a federal candidate, several thousands of dollars for your canvassing tools and things like that. So I'm really most excited about building up the infrastructure, having those tools, and those people who are ready to go. There's so many passionate Forward Party supporters who have experienced door knocking, phone banking, text banking, setting up websites, helping with digital ads, things like that. So it's kind of this like built-in little entourage that you can have. And if you're
mm-hmm.
already a part of that in your local community, you have such a more elevated success rate to actually get into office, right? I'm sure some of you guys can relate to this. I was the vice chair of my local Sierra Club in Tennessee, and I was by far the youngest member, like significantly the youngest member. And I went and I enjoyed these people's company so much, and they baked little like muffins and cookies all the time. And sure, we got together and we talked about environmental issues and what we could do, and we did river cleanups, but we enjoyed each other's company. It
Mm-hmm.
was fun. So a lot of the time it's really about the relationship you have with others. It's not always like you have to have this book of policies. It's, are you a good person? Do you have morals and values? Are you going to show up? Are you going to be an active part of your community? So seeing more activists step up and become political candidates and get elected, that's what really gets me excited.
Yeah, so for people that are watching this and thinking of running, what's the checklist that they should go through to help them decide, like, hey, should I really do this or not? Because I'm guessing there's probably people who've always thought about it, but have never kind of made that big leap.
Mm.
What should they be asking themselves to decide if, this cycle is the time to give it a shot?
Yeah, great question. The first question you should ask yourself is, am I worthy? And the answer is going to be yes. Do you care about the issues? Do you want to do something about it? Then you're worthy to run for office. So many people have imposter syndrome, or you think, I'm not an attorney, whatever it may be. Go, oh, I can't do it. You can do it. It's really about you and your passions. And I would highly suggest you follow them and make the leap to do it. As far as really looking into like what you should run for, what you're going to need, I would look into your local offices, meet with your city council members, look at Ballotpedia is a really easy resource to look at, and you can see what past voter turnouts were. You can look at how many people are registered in your area, and kind of figure out like what makes sense for you to run. If you're like, hey, this is a vacant seat, absolutely throw your hat in and go for it. It's all about talking to people. The more people you can talk to and reach, that's going to be your goal. So you need time. Time's the most valuable thing we have on this planet that you can never get more of. You're going to spend a lot of your time campaigning. Every day, all day, you eat, sleep, and breathe your campaign. So that's just something to kind of be prepared for. A lot of people have full-time jobs, and that kind of goes back to that pay-to-play system. If you can't leave your full-time job to campaign, then that can be really difficult. So you really need to build up your support system and talk to people as early as possible. Just find out what you want to do and then start making plans for it.
And in terms of assembling a team, how big of a team do you need to put together, and what are the key roles to fill?
Well, I think for different races, it's going to vary a little bit, but ultimately, there's a few core things. It's almost 2023. You need somebody who understands digital ads, can build you a website, can help you with your social media posts. I can't tell you how many people I reached with social media versus traditional door knocking, which is
Mm.
amazing, especially in a time where 2020 we had COVID. 2019, 2020 COVID was really crazy. At times everything was closed, you couldn't do traditional door knocking. So definitely need somebody who's tech savvy, who can help you out, a finance person, compliance like we just talked about, don't get a fine
Mm-hmm.
like me, as well as somebody who can fundraise. A lot of time the hardest thing is to say, hey, I need money, give me some money. Give me your hard-earned money, right? A lot of us are really uncomfortable doing that. So having somebody who's really good at being able to fundraise and help you meet those goals. There's a great saying out there, and it's like, signs don't win races, but candidates without signs don't win races either. Um, you need to do both. So you have to have the funds to do your voter outreach, to have your door knockers, your signs, your merch, whatever it may be. So that's a lot. There's a lot you need, really. Finance person, fundraising, social media, and then if you have anybody who has field experience, I would say absolutely worship them, because they're going to be the ones helping train your volunteers and do all that boots on the ground work.
Do you think, or do you see a world where the Forward Party has in-house kind of resources that your candidates can tap into? Like, you have a full-time compliance expert or team of them, and the candidates can reach out you know, to get advice and that kind of thing, or do you think it's more each candidate should assemble their own group?
Well, it's a little wonky because you have to remember a lot of Forward Party is currently a federal PAC. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so law prevents us from intervening in some states. For example, we had a candidate we endorsed in Rhode Island for governor, and he was phenomenal. But Rhode Island state legal, we can't give him anything almost, right?
Mm.
And you cannot collude with the candidate. So I can't call and say, hey, Bob, what do you need? He says, hey, I need $10,000 for, print materials, or I need this and that. That's actually collusion. So we can't actually do those things in many cases. Federal PACs is more so like, we can't talk to you very much, but we can give endless amounts of money, which is really crazy, right?
Hmm.
That's actually part of the problem with like dark money and a lot of PACs in the country, is they're moving these massive amounts of funds. So in the states where we have party recognition or a ballot line or something like that, those state parties can absolutely engage. They can fully engage with their candidates. They can help provide resources, training, and people. On the national level, we do have a vendors list we're working on, and we can provide that. So we can say, here's like a trusted network of people who do, graphic designs, web design, print materials, campaign managers, whatever it may be, for them to peruse and hire if they wanted to. So there's a few ways
Mm-hmm.
to help, but it kind of depends on what state you're in and what kind of recognition we have in that state.
Very cool. And just zooming out a bit, I know it started with an outreach from Andrew saying, "Hey, you want to do this thing." What's his role going to be in the future? I don't. I'm curious. I think it makes sense that you don't want the party to be about one person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at the same time, he's a very capable person. What's his role going to be?
Yeah, I can't speak for Andrew, and I don't have a crystal ball. He's currently the co-chair
Mm-hmm.
with Christy Todd Whitman from New Jersey, and for the foreseeable future, that's where they'll be. What comes next, I'm not sure, but that was something really important we're trying to express to people is this is not the Andrew Yang party. This is its own movement, and Andrew is a huge part of that and the inspiration behind it and everything, but it's never about one person. This is our slogan's literally forward together, and it's about that people powered. You can't have success on one person, right? We need a
Yeah.
ton of people to come behind this and be active. And I think ultimately Andrew would be thrilled to see more people step up and get involved and take the lead, and kind of pass that knowledge down.
Yeah. What are some of Christy Todd Whitman's kind of big passion areas or principles that she wants to really advocate for as a co-chair of the party?
I mean, she's definitely passionate about the democracy reforms, and she's, experienced quite a bit as herself as, previous Republican Party
Mm-hmm.
leader. And I think ultimately there's been this dialogue for so long that independents can't win or you're going to
Mm-hmm.
spoil your vote and this, that, and the other. And there's a lot of pressure of being within your party. Um, there comes to a point where you don't want to bend the knee. Like you want to be able to make change. You want to be able to speak out and stand for what you want to stand for. And I see her as doing that. So I think she's very brave, and I'm actually really proud of her. I admire her quite a bit. But that just is the core of everything we're doing, is trying to break that mold and get those barriers down.
And when you think about 2022, now you're I guess it's your first year with the Forward Party.
Yeah.
What do you think have been the biggest learnings and insights that, were surprising that you had to learn the hard way, but now they'll kind of guide future decisions?
Legal barriers. Legal barriers are the absolute worst. Helping work with the different states and seeing how do you become a party, even. Oh my
Mm,
gosh, it is intentionally convoluted in many cases. Sometimes the state will actually make a change to that process and not publicly publish it. And you have to call and talk to a Secretary of State. There was one incident where we found out the paper that you print your information on actually has to be a certain weight of paper.
hmm.
So there's all these bizarre little legal details, that you kind of see why so many third party movements haven't been successful in the past. So that's honestly been like the biggest shocker in the learning curve, is figuring out how difficult the system is for politics and how broken it really is, to be honest.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's almost like they don't want new parties to be
Oh,
formed.
almost. Yeah, it's almost like they don't want any competition at all, so they make it incredibly difficult. Yeah, it's every time. It could say you need 100,000 signatures, but then when you look a little deeper, it's like you need to have 25,000 in each county. It has to be completely split, and every
Hmm.
single county has to have the same amount of signatures in every single one. So it gets really, really difficult and down in the trenches and crazy, and sometimes hard to find out. And then there's countless deadlines. Michigan, I believe, has a deadline of like January 1 to declare their candidates for like 2024.
Mm,
So being a new party, if you haven't made it that far, how can you even begin to do that if you don't even exist?
mm.
Some places it's like, does the chicken come before the egg? So you don't have a ballot line, but you can run candidates to earn a ballot line, and it's just very, very complicated and confusing in many states. Some states it's really easy. It's like, hey, give me $25 in your name, and you're a party. So it's all over the map.
What's the hardest state to start a third party?
Probably New York.
Uh,
New York is really
yeah.
difficult. Yeah.
And you mentioned Nevada, you're seeing some traction. Are there other states where you're like, oh yeah, of course you want to be a
Mm-hmm.
50 state party, but where are you
Mm-hmm.
seeing the most traction so far?
North Carolina has a great crew. Texas, they have party recognition, and they're all doing amazing things. They had their own little Texas convention. I was there; it was
Yeah.
phenomenal. There's so many great people. Um, I want to shout out so many people. The Tennessee team is kicking butt. I've got to give them credit too. They're doing phenomenal. Tennessee is one of the weirder states. We can run candidates by county, and that's about all we can do. So we can qualify candidates by county, and they can actually be forward party candidates. And then it's harder to get full party recognition in that state. But yeah, I
County
mean,
by
every
county.
state has an active group of
Yeah.
people who are working intensely.
All right. Austin Bacon's very excited about Texas. He had a question actually. He said, I noticed that the forward board has been added to the site. Good for transparency. Are you planning on something like for the staff page similar to what you used to have?
Yes, I would love to see our staff page come back up, especially since we have a lot of new faces. We just brought on some regional organizers who were from the grassroots level. So it's expanding quickly. We definitely need to get a staff page up. And I actually suggested a fun thing we could do would be like everybody pick a book that they like or
Mm.
recommend and have that under their like staff profile so you guys can know kind of more about us. So yeah, we'll get one up soon. We did just kind of restructure, so a lot of people were like moving around, and we did something fun where we really wanted to change the concept. So instead of having a political team, which is very traditional, we have a communities and building team. Um, and that's basically the equivalent to like our political team. But we really wanted to emphasize this is transcending traditional politics, and we really want to do it different. So we just kind of solidified those new roles and titles, and got everybody in place. And I guess I'll go back today and harass them about getting a staff page up
what
politely.
what would maybe the last question before we wrap up, Blair? What would be the book that you would put on your staff profile page?
Whew. Man, I have so many on my shelf that I love right now. Um, the rebel in me really wants to put a universal basic income book up there. I have quite a few good ones. But also I think soundtracks. We just did soundtracks. This one is interesting, and I think it could help a lot of people because we hear so often it can't be done. It can't be done.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be done. That's the soundtracks in our head.
Mm.
And you really can change that, right? All it takes is believing that you can do it to make it happen. And I think that'd be a really good book for everybody who just wants some more optimistic, hope about the future and politics in general. Independent Voter, um, Independence Rising. I said it wrong. That's Jackie's book, and she's one of our board of directors. Amazing, amazing. She Independent Voters, her org. Her book is really good too, and would give you a lot of hope and inspiration. So I'd have a tough time narrowing it down. Maybe I'll have to like get them
Yeah.
to let us do like a top three.
Soundtrack sounds super interesting. I'll have to add that
Yeah,
to the list for my
it's
holiday reading.
that. It would be John Acuff, Jonacuff. So if
Okay.
anybody wants that one,
All
yeah.
right. Well, check it out. Anything else that you want to hit before we wrap up? It's been a great conversation and great to catch
Yeah,
up with you.
thanks for having me on, Tom. I love your fish tanks back there. Those are some cute little goldfish.
Yeah,
Um,
they're pretty happy today.
yeah, that's adorable. No, I just want to thank everybody who is on and listening and who keeps supporting Tom. He's been, at this for a long time and bringing so many interesting people on, and it gives me a lot of hope as an individual for these kind of programs who are willing to, keep it moving. It can be so hard, like I said, politics. So hang in there, help us at Forward Party, join the revolution, the reason revolution, for change.
I love it. Yeah, and as you pick more candidates and find interesting ones, send them my way. Would love to have a deep dive conversation with them, learn more about them, and help spread the word.
Yeah, that I can definitely do, Tom. I can send you some very interesting people.
Love it. Love it. Well, with that, we'll say goodbye, nerds.
Bye,
Thanks.
nerds.
Thanks. See you later. Bye, Blair.
Bye, Tom. Thanks.
All right. Blair Walsingham, such a great person. Glad that Forward Party has tapped her services. I was always impressed with her as a candidate. Comes across as maybe like I don't know, maybe a common sense. I don't want to use the M word because she has bold ideas like UBI, but in a good way, a moderate who wants to try new things as well. Maybe like a progressive moderate. Maybe that's going to be a new label because I kind of think of myself as a progressive moderate. Like I'm not totally on one extreme or another. I want to try new things, but I want to do it in a sensible way. So Blair mentioned that she appreciates this channel, kind of keeping it going, even when the kind of like excitement of the Yang campaign is far in our rear view mirror. Part of the reason I'm able to keep this going and that I choose to do it is because I know people value it, and I know that partly by folks who like and comment and subscribe to the channel, and people who help cover the costs. They're not huge costs, but they are operating costs, and it's kind of a good sign that okay, yeah, this content is creating some value for people to chip in. And those are our channel members. So just want to give a shout out to the people who click that join link on YouTube. And it starts at $1.99 a month, and you can cancel anytime. The money goes to mainly software licensing fees for like creating the thumbnails or hosting the audio podcasts, or something that's coming up is composing an original music for the show. Oh, excuse me, I'm gonna sneeze. Woo! All right. Thank you to whoever said bless you. So who are these members and who are these awesome people? They are. We're going to start at the top with our most senior member, Soldier One. Been supporting the channel for 32 months. Wow. Awesome. Thank you, Soldier One. You are awesome. And you keep this channel going. As do Kristen Slevin and Bike. Vice President level. Thank you, Kristen Slevin and Bike. And then the hardcore level, we have Gene, David, DK, Jekalego, Kirsch, Mr. History, Mona, Vaughn, Yang, Robert, Dean, Statnerd, Galessa, J. Perrin, AH, Dana, Jason, Parth, Daniel, and Mickey. And thank you to StreamYard for helping support us with our streaming costs. And then at the verified nerd level, which is only $1.99 a month, so very accessible, you've got Lisa, Albert, Brandon, Arez, Sophia, Doris, Emerald, Ben, Rasta, James, Emma, Ira, Elizabeth, Shoni, Dr. Jameson, William, Karen, Zemery, Mai, Brittany, Warren, Wana, Lucky, Kevin, Nell, Toby, Jeremy, David, Nicholas, Mike, Aurora, Zig, Ann Carter, and Roberto. And who are overall our youngest and OG nerds. So the oldest nerds, the ones that have been with us from the beginning, are Lisa, Jean, Kristen, Albert, Brandon, Arez, and David. All 35-month-old and still supporting the channel. Thank you so much, you OG nerds. You can tell they're OG. They have their icon has like all the little stuff filled in. And then our youngest nerds are Roberto, N. Carter, Zig PC, Aurora, Mickey, Mike, David, and Nicholas, all 3 months young. So thank you for choosing to support the channel so recently. Last thing I'll give you guys an update on is we're going to be making some improvements to ofthepeople.us. This is sort of like Yelp for political candidates, and we're going to be doing some visual design updates and rolling out an Ask Me Anything capability. So hopefully this will be useful in the 2024 cycle, but we know a lot of campaigns spin up in starting early 23. So we'll be making some improvements to ofthepeople.us. And let me see if I can quickly pull up some of the names of the supporters of the People effort, which is all volunteers. And so all of the Patreon supporters that support ofthepeople.us, it goes to our GitHub, like software fees, our Amazon Web Services, that kind of thing. So who are the biggest supporters of OTP? Eric Sanchez, Elizabeth Owen, Tony Perella, Rockout, Iggy, Aaron, John, Rob, Timothy, Jessica, Trickle Up, Muhan, Travis, Austin. Oh, Austin's in the live chat. I think Austin was in the live chat recently. Mai and Dylan. So thank you for supporting OTP. We're going to keep going. And it's all volunteer, so we only able to put in a few hours a month. But every month, you're going to see the site get a little better. And we'll be doing some big updates in the next few months. So thanks to all the OTP supporters out there. With that, hope you all have a wonderful start of your holiday. I think a lot of us are starting to wind down next week, which is awesome. Safe travels. If you are traveling, be careful out there. There is a lot of sickness going around. You heard my sniffles and sneezing. And I just got an email from some folks who I had dinner with who came down with COVID. And then I've had some people in my family get the flu. So do your best to take your precautions. Consult your doctor. Many doctors recommend getting a flu shot, getting the COVID booster, and when you're in really crowded indoor spots, especially like, in my opinion, airplanes before takeoff when they don't have the ventilation on, a good N95 mask probably wouldn't hurt. So think about those kinds of things as my public service announcement. But don't take my word for it. Just ask your doctor what they think is best. With that, I'm going to say goodbye, nerds. Thanks again for tuning in. And if you're still here, do me one last favor and hit that like button. And then comment below if you have any questions or comments that you think I should try and hit for future guest shows. And if you thought what Blair said and what the Forward Party is doing is useful, go ahead and share out this interview so other people can benefit from it as well. Happy holidays, and we'll see you next time. Bye, nerds.